As we inch closer to the fantasy football playoffs, you're going to need to find more and more competitive edges over your league mates. One of those edges that you could be taking advantage of is making sure you're staying sharp on the waiver wire, rostering players before they break out or before they provide someone else's fantasy football roster some value. So today, we're going to help you accomplish exactly that. I'm Lucas Wencl here with Fantasy Pros, bringing you my top 5 waiver wire stashes ahead of Week 11 and next week's waiver run as well. Before we dive on into that list of players, though, we've got a special deal going on for you all right now. Unlock a month of Betting Pros Premium for free. Download the Betting Pros app today and use promo code FP1month. Get access to tools like the Same Game Parlay tool, the Prop Bet Analyzer, and the Prize Picks Prop Bet Cheat Sheet. Don't miss out. Try it 100% free for 1 month now, available both on iOS and Android. Kicking off our list this week is Los Angeles Rams running back Blake Corum, who is rostered in 21% of leagues. Corum was on my list last week, and I'm still surprised that even after a third consecutive game of 12-plus carries, his roster percentage has only increased by 4%. He now has 9 more carries in his last 3 games than he did through the first 6 weeks of the season. Kyren Williams' rush attempt share is also down to 50% in the Rams' last 3 contests, compared to 65% during the first 6 games this year. I mentioned last week that a big part of this might be game script, that the Rams have been playing with sizable enough leads. You don't need to feed Kyren Williams as much. But the other thing I mentioned is that Sean McVay might finally be embracing a philosophy change to his running back room. The Rams last week started rotating Kyren Williams and Blake Corum by drive, and that trend continued against San Francisco in Week 10. Kyren Williams finished the game with 14 carries. Blake Corum had 13 himself. I will note amidst that, though, that we have yet to see Corum score a touchdown. Kyren's drives, they've been being sustained longer. Thus, he has 71% of the team's carries inside of the 5-yard line in their last 3 games. But if Kyren Williams misses any time with an injury, we have the answer right in front of us as to who the next man up is going to be. This Rams offense is blazing hot right now, and there is zero reason whatsoever that Blake Corum should be rostered in less than 50% of leagues, let alone 30% of leagues, given the volume he's currently getting and the contingent upside he possesses rest of season. The second player on our list is Washington Commanders running back Chris Rodriguez, who is rostered in 20% of leagues. Reports were leaking all of last week that Chris Rodriguez was going to get a bump in usage after being named a team captain for last week's game against the Lions. We didn't get to see the full fruit of those reports. Rodriguez had left early with a shoulder injury. Yet, as Adam Azer over at CBS pointed out, Chris Rodriguez played 17 first-half snaps, and no other Commanders running back played more than 6. Now, that didn't turn into much, only 6 carries for 16 yards. He did score on the ground, but it's also probably worth noting that Chris Rodriguez has now scored in 3 of his last 4 games. Cameron Wolfe over at NFL.com has been tracking the Commanders over in Madrid for their game coming up against the Dolphins. He reported that Chris Rodriguez opened with a full practice this week, and he'll be good to go and quote-unquote have a key role. What that key role means is unclear, but this is where I'll also loop in Coach Speak Index and the remarks he noted from Cliff Kingsbury last week. Cliff Kingsbury, quote, said, "We have to take what's blocked." I thought that was one thing that Chris Rodriguez did a really nice job of when he came in. We have to take what's blocked, and then the big plays will come. Every time we have asked him to step up, he's played at a high level. Now, I'm not in the business of making empty promises to you all, but reading all the tea leaves here, C-Rod should be rostered in much more than 20% of leagues if he's going to function as Washington's lead back for the foreseeable future. If he can capitalize against Miami's defense this week and maintain lead back duties after the team's Week 12 bye, he gets 2 juicy matchups in the fantasy playoffs against the Giants and Cowboys. So in my mind, he's definitely worth stashing. Next up on our list is Chicago Bears wide receiver Luther Burden, who is rostered in 18% of leagues. Burden is a frequent flyer on this list because we continue to get glimpses of his potential in Ben Johnson's offense. Last week, he logged a season high in both snap share and routes while catching 3 passes for 51 yards. Now, that increase in snaps likely came at the cost of DJ Moore exiting against the Giants with a shoulder injury, and as of this recording, it's unclear whether or not he's going to suit up against the Vikings this week. But the other positive thing to note for Luther Burden is that Olamide Zaccheaus finally saw a dip in snaps. He logged a season-low 57% snap share and only finished with 1 catch on 4 targets for a pathetic 5 yards. It never made sense to me at all why Ben Johnson wanted to keep throwing Olamide Zaccheaus out on the football field instead of the guy he spent an early second-round pick on in the NFL draft this year. But the time might be right now for the Luther Burden breakout. Let's say DJ Moore does sit in Week 11. Luther Burden is an easy plug-and-play into the DJ Moore role for the Bears. He might actually be the long-term DJ Moore solution and replacement for this team. But even if DJ Moore does play, I wouldn't be surprised if Luther Burden and Olamide Zaccheaus actually flip snap shares this week, and it's Luther Burden playing 60% of the snaps, and then Olamide Zaccheaus only playing 50%. What we know for sure, though, is that Luther Burden is too talented to keep off the field much longer, right? And if we get another positive outing against Minnesota or Pittsburgh in the next 2 weeks, his rostership percentage is only going to keep skyrocketing. Back half of the season, these are the kind of guys I want to stash. Rookie breakout upside, and Luther Burden possesses a ton of it. The fourth player on our list this week is Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver Tyler Lockett, who is rostered in 11% of leagues. I know, Devon Vele got all sorts of groans last week, and now you're groaning about the 33-year-old wide receiver who was already released by the Tennessee Titans this year. I completely get it. I don't know what goes on in the mind of Chip Kelly, though, that Michael Mayer and Tyler Lockett need to be involved instead of Deontay Thornton or Jack Bech, their young rookies. But this isn't the first time we've seen some tomfoolery usage from Chip Kelly this year, so I'm also willing to bet it's not going to be the last. And when I say questionable tomfoolery, right, I really mean that Tyler Lockett is playing ahead of young rookies in what looks to be a lost season now at 2-7. I am not talking about Tyler Lockett playing in the slot, because that's what happened. Tyler Lockett took over in the slot for Jakobi Meyers, which makes 100% sense, right? That's where he's lined up for basically his entire career. His pre-existing connection with Geno Smith earned him 5 catches on 6 targets for 41 yards on Thursday Night Football. Somehow, good for the wide receiver 35 in PPR formats last week. Is there risk that Tyler Lockett could get phased out for the likes of Jack Bech down the stretch? Sure, I suppose that could be true, but I'm not even sure if the Raiders know entirely what they want to do with Jack Bech, considering they had him playing the X receiver in this offense back in Week 9, and Bech is much more suitable for a power slot role and has a lot more experience playing as such. Here's the thing, though. In deeper 14-plus man leagues or 12-man 3 wide receiver leagues, the wide receiver 35 is likely worthy of hitting your lineup in some capacity. There may not be colossal upside here, but if the Raiders are going to remain top 7 in pass rate over expectation like they have over the last month, Tyler Lockett is a rosterable piece at the end of your bench. The last player on our list this week is Jacksonville Jaguars tight end Brenton Strange, who is rostered in 20% of leagues. Strange has been on IR since Week 6, but as of this recording, he's logged a limited practice ahead of Week 11. He still needs to be activated from IR in order to play, but clearly we're nearing his return to action. Strange wasn't posting these mind-melting numbers to start the year, but he was getting good volume, which sometimes is all you can ask for at the tight end position in fantasy football. In his last 2 games in Weeks 3 and 4, Strange drew 7 targets in both games and averaged just shy of 11 fantasy points per game in those contests. To start the year, Strange was honestly really the only pass catcher in this Jaguars offense that seemed to have reliable hands. He caught 21 of 24 passes to start the year, so you're getting a really nice boost in PPR formats as well if Strange is going to catch almost anything that's thrown his way. I don't want to promise you the world with Brenton Strange, but he does get the Jets in Indianapolis twice in weeks 14 through 17, who are both top 12 in schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position this year. Sometimes it's just enough to have Steady Eddie at tight end, and with all the injuries to the Jaguars receivers, and who knows if those will keep piling up, Strange could be a perfectly fine option week in and week out to close out the season. Alrighty, y'all, that is it. That is all I've got for you today. My top 5 waiver wire stashes ahead of Week 11. Go sprint to your waiver wire right now just to make sure none of these guys are out there floating in your league. They could provide you a nice boost at the end of the season here as we near the fantasy playoffs. But before we finally sign off, remember, we've got a special deal going on for you all right now. Unlock a month of Betting Pros Premium for free. Download the Betting Pros app today and use promo code FP1month. Get access to tools like the Same Game Parlay tool, the Prop Bet Analyzer, and the Prize Picks Prop Bet Cheat Sheet. Don't miss out. Try it 100% free for 1 month now. Available both on iOS and Android.